and I'm out there allowing the people to talk. So Helen's here.
Helen, welcome, welcome.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, Happy New Year.
You too.
Thank you.
Hi, how are you guys?
Hi, everybody.
They're all
Welcome.
coming in.
Whoa.
There's
Right,
Daisy.
Hello.
Hi,
Hello,
everyone.
Daisy.
Good, thank you. Hey, team.
Oh,
Compliments of the new year.
I'm supposed to have a PowerPoint going, aren't I?
Well, just a few housekeeping things. Happy New Year, everyone. My name is Ann Haig. I am the Director of Certification for the Bluegrass chapter of the IIBA. And I would like to thank each of you for joining us on what is most likely the first day back in the office this year for a lot of you, and maybe even after the holidays. So if you haven't already done so, please take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat and let us know from where you are joining today. South Africa. Nice.
Oh, wow. Daisy.
All right.
Lexington, Kentucky. All right.
Yes, Helen's in Lexington.
All right.
So,
Montreal.
Kentucky.
Very
All
nice.
right. We're covering some ground.
Yes, we are.
Ellie, are we going to see you at our local meeting in 2 weeks? Our Parna is from India, possibly.
Dubai. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Well, I think we'll probably go ahead and get started. And as people join in, we'll do a few more minutes of intros and then, allow a few more people to join in, and then we'll turn it over to Chris. So typically in the lead up to our BABIC study groups, which this season is going to be taking place on Tuesday evenings, beginning January 17th and running through April the 11th. We typically have a guest speaker that will conduct a certification chat. And today our guest speaker is Chris Bentley. And in addition to holding the Fellow of the Life Management Institute certification, Chris also attained his CBAP certification this past year and has graciously offered to share his experience and answer any questions that you may have regarding the certification journey and process in general. So before I turn the mic over to Chris, I do want to let you know that the early bird and special pricing for IIBA members, as well as certification chat attendees, does end this Friday, January the 6th. So be sure and get registered to take advantage of those special rates. And we will be sharing some links in the chat throughout today's session. So be on the lookout for those as well. So if let's see, we've got a few more people joining in, but I think, Chris, at this time, I think I'll turn it over to you, let you do a brief introduction, and then we can open it up to everyone.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Ann.
Thank you.
Right. Well, I'll say good afternoon from my time zone, and it's going to be good evening and what have you from a number of different time zones that we have represented here. So I'll say good day. How about that? Just to give you a little bit of background where I've come from before I dove into the CBAP process. I've been in the workforce. I hate to say it now, for around 30 something years. Good golly, I don't know how that happened. Time flies. And had worked in a number of different industries, both in the securities industry, in the insurance industry. I've done things in the banking industry, as well as some things in aerospace, and also in packaging and paper and supply and facility supplies type things and logistics. So I've been around a number of different disciplines. I've worked within, I've actually been part of finance groups, been part of IT groups, worked in marketing, been in operations. So I've taken a long, rather circuitous route to where I am in my career today. And along the way, I've held things such as I've held securities exams, or rather securities licenses, excuse me. But I've done securities exams to get those licenses. And it also started down the path of the chartered financial analyst route and had done some of the testing through there as well. So when it came time and what's happened throughout that career process is that along the way, you know, I've managed people, I've not managed people, I've done a fair amount of project management, and I've done a lot of business analysis work over the years. And what I'd finally decided was it was time to actually get certified and, you know, get the industry certification for business analysis, since I'd done so much of it over the years. And it also doesn't hurt to really bone up on what the standard practices are. Picked up a lot of that along the way, but it's good to actually do what our colleagues around the world do, or at least be speaking the same language. And so when it came time to just finally do the certification, I'll just give you an overview of how I approached it, and then maybe we'll just kind of open it up for questions after that, because you know, rather than giving a lot of biographical or background on myself. But the way I approached it was much like I did with the CFA and like I did with securities exams. Got the BABOK first of all, and you know, read through the BABOK. I did the 12-week course here through the Bluegrass chapter. There's a 12-week training course that I did preparatory to that, and along the way, I'd also picked up additional study materials, you know, such as one of my colleagues here had gone through the watermark course, so they had the watermark book as well as the watermark flashcards and that type of thing. And I also picked up on the watermark online exam website, as well as something called Visual BA from a company called Progera, and I can send you out the link to that if people don't have that yet. And not to get too much into the details of what each of those did, but the point is, I grabbed materials from multiple different sources and started with reading of the BABOK and going through the course of study through the Bluegrass chapter. Then after that, the way I approached it was frankly just testing myself section by section. I utilized that watermark thing, the watermark online testing extensively, because I think for me anyway, it was very useful to have something that's online, automatically generated. I can go back and redo things. It mixes up new questions. To me, that works. Everybody has a different learning style, but to me, that works really well. And then as I would go through that, I would find the places where I felt deficient and would go back and study sections of the book. And then I actually ended up going back and reading the whole book again, and then continued to test and test. And I kind of set up a goal for myself that I wanted to be getting 90% plus correct on my questions when I would do practice questions. So I felt like if I got 90% plus correct on the practice, then the real thing should fall into place. That's been my experience with these kind of tests before. So I employed that approach this time. And frankly, I didn't have a deadline. I had sort of a deadline that I'd set for myself to get the exam But I did decide that if I really felt like I wasn't quite where I needed to be, there was no shame in moving the date to a little bit. I would rather move the date and make sure I'm ready. And I moved the date a couple of times because life happens and sometimes you can't study as much as you think you're going to study. And you find that you're not quite ready. There's no shame in moving the date. And which I did a couple of times. But then when I took it, no problem, passed the first time, and we were good. So hopefully that was a reasonably cogent summary of how I approached it, and what was successful for me. And I can bring up, and if you like, I can bring onto the screen maybe a couple of the examples of the tools I use, like the Visual BA and the Watermark online study, if anybody would like to see that. But at this point, I figured rather than putting together a PowerPoint presentation walking through all that, I would give you a brief overview since we only have half an hour. But what I'd like to do though is open this up to questions at this point. What are the questions that you have that I might be able to help answer?
So you can come off mute and ask with your voice, or you could put it in a chat and Ian and I will feed it to Chris. Although I think Chris can see the chat as well. Just a correction, Chris, that Visual BA material is licensed material by Progera. You're not supposed to pass it on to anybody.
Oh, I wasn't going to pass it on. I apologize. I was going to show it to everybody.
You're going to show the links in that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
and
but
I did put in the chat that everybody that registers for the upcoming Bob Box study group that starts January 17th, you'll have opportunity to purchase that, and it's like $20, so it's no big expense or anything. But you'll have opportunity to purchase that if you're signing up for our Bob Box study group, which helps you get any of the core IIBA certifications, the CBAP, CCBA, or the ECBA.
Yeah, that was one thing I would add. Yeah, the Progera was very, very reasonably priced, and frankly, if you the Watermark online exam study website, that's actually quite reasonably priced as well. I think it was only like about $149 for, I believe it was 90 days.
Is it? Yeah, they have 30,
something
60, and 90-day subscriptions to that.
Something like that, which I felt
it's
like
even cheaper if all you
price.
want is 30 days,
Exactly. And I did it for 90 days and it was, I thought it was very reasonably priced.
So I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, as Aaron was mentioning, this study group that's coming up is, it's valid for any of the 3 certifications, the ECBA, the CBAP, and at the end of the link that we've been sharing, where you can actually register for the study group, there is a little quiz. If you're not sure which certification is right for you, there's a link to a quiz that will help guide you based on there is certain criteria that does have to be met for each of those levels of certification. So if you're not sure which certification is right for you, then we encourage you to go over to that link, take the little self-test, and that will help guide you in the right direction.
Okay. And I'm seeing that we have, is it Sata that was asking, like to know what the Visual BA that we're talking about is. That is the Progera program that we're just mentioning a moment ago, which if you participate in the study group, you'll be able to you'll get the links to they provide the link to be able to purchase that. I believe I was just looking at a link that was back here and I'm just trying to catch up on that, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
It is basically a digital version of the BABAC. So it allows you to jump from place to place to follow a topic all the way through the BABAC. So if you're if you're in, conduct, elicitation and collaboration, and you're on the conduct, elicitation task in there, and it's got a list of techniques that you can use to elicit requirements and BA knowledge. You can click on those names and go right to that technique and see exactly what that technique is.
Yeah.
And then you should be able to go back, to the conduct elicitation. So it's a nice way to kind of walk through the BABAC.
And one way I used that a lot too, and I want to back up for just a second. Since we're recording, there probably are copyright issues with me bringing it up on the screen and walking through some of what it's got, right? Is that correct? Yeah, okay. I don't want to, I saw Ann nodding, but I didn't know.
I think you can temporarily or very quickly show it, not really walk through.
But just kind of zip through and say, okay, there's what it is. Okay, I don't want to run into any copyright issues, but the bottom line about that, and I'll bring it up here in just a second, or the way I used it rather, was primarily when I was, there are some things you're gonna have to just memorize, and there are some things that you can. There are things from the exam where you can conceptualize, you can put things together, what have you. But there you go. That's the Progera right there. But there are other things that you're just going to have to beat your head against the wall and just memorize by rote. Some of the lists of of the things of different things that go together. What are the techniques that go with this? What are the and things of that nature. And the visual BA I felt was very helpful for that, at least for me. That it really helped me with some of that rote memorization of the base of there you go. You can see how you got it's broken down in those knowledge areas.
Yeah, I'm not getting the links to work.
Yeah, normally what you'd be able
One
to
of the
do,
other ones.
yeah, normally what you'd be able to do is click on these on each one of these things, and it takes you to, it will take you to another page. There's one page is more of a grid that kind of puts everything, that has everything lined up like on almost a spreadsheet type of format, and then it breaks it down, breaks it down into the. There you go. Let's see.
This is another piece of it.
There you go.
Yeah, so you can see these are links in that.
Yeah,
And it'll take you that right now to things like that. You can go see techniques if you want to see what benchmarking is all about.
When it came time to the memorization, I thought this was an extremely helpful tool. A lot more helpful than trying to page through the BABAC.
Yeah.
It just consolidated a lot quicker. It just consolidated it all. But sometimes though, what I found was that I would go through some of the memorization on that, and it would trigger me to say, I need to know a little bit more about what goes on in this piece right here. And so, okay, I'll open up the BABAC and read a little more detail behind it. Or, because sometimes when you're just memorizing a list, you'll run into the terms and say, okay, I think I remember what this meant, but I'm not sure. I better make sure I know. Because you maybe the exam may ask you some more detailed question on that. And so you would find that sometimes is a good trigger for me too, as far as some things I'd need to, it would trigger my thinking into reading more deeply in some areas. So very, very useful tool.
You got a question in the chat there from Upnet.
Yep.
She's applied for the ECBA. It's going to take some training from Institute. So may I know some good tips to get good marks on the ECBA exam?
I have not done the ECBA, but I think I could pretty much guarantee you that just by my experience with all kinds of other testing, that the same approach that we're talking about here is going to be that we would apply that I applied to the CBAP. I would say really would apply to the ECBA. I mean, just read the materials, then take whatever other materials you have to quiz from. I'm not sure, since I haven't done the ECBA, I can't really speak to what, like what we just looked at Progera, that's relevant to the BABOC and all that. And I imagine that would be there, translate well there, but just go back and, read the materials, then quiz yourself and go, and find and work on what it is that if you're not testing well yourself on an area, read more in that, go back to the back to the source material, read more, and go back and quiz some more. That's about the best way to do it as far as I know.
Absolutely agree, Chris. There is no substitute for knowing the material. That's what you're going to be tested on. And what you're tested on is the BABOC. So that works for all three exams, the CBAP, the CCBA, and the ECBA. The visual BA works for all of them. If you go through our study group, you will get a study guide that puts the context of the BABOC in more readable form. Some of the stuff's in tables instead of just text. Makes it really nice and easier to read and everything. But again, whatever study aid you use in that, you should have a copy of the BABOC. That's what you're being tested on. And that, Chris, I'll agree with you. Test. Take all the practice tests you can. That watermark learning, like we were saying, have a 30, 60, or 90-day subscription. You can take as many practice exams or tests as you want in that 30, 60, or 90 days. So, and I would highly suggest it and everything. So, especially when you're getting up to the date of taking the actual exam, continue to do those tests, make sure you get high grades on them. Doesn't have to be 90%, but, certainly higher, will give you the confidence that you're going in to take that.
And I apologize. I didn't mean to jump in on you.
All the exams are multiple choice. So there's no fill in the blanks. There's no word finds. There's no funny stuff. They're all multiple choice. They all have 4 answer options each, not 3, not 5, not 10. 4 answer options. You got to select the correct answer. I was going to talk. Thanks for the link there, Chris.
Right,
and that watermark learning. Like we say, you sign up for a subscription 30, 60, or 90 days. You can take as many practice tests as you want. You can narrow those practice tests to a specific chapter or techniques or underlying competencies.
Yep.
So you can test on very specific things that you want to make sure that you're doing good at.
And it's also broken down where you can they have testing that's specific to CBAP or to the ECBA or to other different exams too. So you're able to tailor that so that you're not overstudying in areas that maybe you don't need to overstudy in. It can be tailored to the actual exam that you're doing. Yeah, I thought that was very helpful, and thank you for the reminder. By the way, the study guide from that comes from the study group was also very helpful as well. And I'd failed to mention that before, but that was another great resource. So.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And you're talking about if there's any other course for BA, there are a number of other courses available outside of the study group. The study group I found to be it was from a cost perspective, you can't beat it compared to a lot of the other programs that are out there. Because, Watermark is very well known. They have a full-fledged They have a full-fledged course you can take. I don't remember the cost, but it seems like it was, as I recall, I think it was like in the $1,000 range plus. And you know, there are other avenues as well, other groups as well that do have, at least from the CBAP perspective, and I would assume it applies to the other exams, that have courses. I just felt like and some of those might compress it where you do it all like in the course of a week or whatever. If you want to take a full 40 hours and just, you know, take a week off and go for it, I think some of them will do that. You know, with the study group, it extended over a period of time. But for me, that worked out great scheduling wise. And like I said, from a cost perspective, you couldn't beat it. So
Well,
I
thank you for
felt like
that.
it was
That's good to hear, Chris. Thank you.
yeah, I felt it was a real good value.
So you know, if you want to learn to be a job and how to do it and all of that, there are BA career courses out there that'll give you specifics, you know, whether it's foundational or more advanced, and that we offer some of those through Soft Ed, which is an endorsed education provider for IIBA. You can find those on our website. This BABOK study group that Chris went through, Ann went through it, you know, it specifically is to train you to take one of the IIBA core exams. And you know, all our students, for whether it's the CBAP, the CCBA, or the ECBA, you know, go through this BABOK study group. We have an ECBA study guide or the CBAP study guide. So we do train the ECBA specifically for that exam in that. The study group provides 4 test sessions, practice test sessions, and that to help you practice. And that you can, once you take those, you can decide if you're going to put more money toward the watermark learning practice test and that. And we have a separate practice test for CBAP versus these ECBA. So, you know, we are really training you, whether you want the ECBA, the CCBA, or the CBAP, to get ready to take that test.
And I do see that one question: is it possible to get a job, you know, abroad once you pass the ECBA? The way I would see any of these certifications, I see a couple different things about any of the certification. Number one, you know, first, the intrinsic value of it, the fact that, you know, it helps you train you in the, you know, in the standardized language of a profession. But then secondarily, as far as getting a job, I would never see something as necessarily getting you a job, but what I would say is it does look much better to an employer if you have the certification in your field. To me, that is a differentiator, perhaps between you and other candidates, and
Well said.
that's always a good thing.
Very good point. And I was going to bring that up. So thanks for saying that, Chris. Yeah, if there's a job posting for a junior BA or new entry level BA position out there, and they get 150 applications to that, and you could put ECBA behind your name, that is that differentiator Chris is talking about, is, you know, it sets you apart from the crowd. And, you know, 140 of those applications will end up in the trash can. Those that have ECBA or CCBA behind their name are going to be the first ones that are really looked at, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other questions in the chat before we wrap up today's session? Or as Erin mentioned, feel free to come off mute and ask. No? Okay, well, I guess that's going to wrap it up for today. Is there anything else you want to say in closing, Chris or Aaron?
I would just say, first of all, thank you very much for having me today.
Oh, thank you.
And I really enjoyed doing this. And just to everybody on the call who's getting ready to study or is already studying or what have you, just keep at it. Like I said, just quiz. But good luck. It's great. It's a great thing to get done, and definitely wish luck to all of you.
Agree. Thank you, Chris. We appreciate your time this afternoon. Everybody, again, the deadline for the early bird registration and certification chat participants is this coming Friday, January the 6th. So please grab that code out of the chat, and we hope to see you all in a couple of weeks.
And best wishes for Ibuka, who's going to be taking the exam at the end of the month.
Yes, yes. Yep. Well, Happy New Year, everybody, and thank you for your time this afternoon.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.